Yeah, okay. That's better. I even looked this time. I looked. Hello again, cat in the box. Nice to see you here. Gotta love technology. I did think I fixed that, but apparently not. Apparently was not a driver issue. Okay, okay. Give me a minute here. Just gonna get this up. Now I need to get you up. Yep. There we go. Actually, a bit smaller would be nice. Yeah, okay. Alright, ready to go. Hey there, hi there. I have power here. I'm sure I'm not who you were expecting to be here. But, I'm Brother Id, the Aegis insect of the Aegis cult. Third stream in 1 week, yeah. Unfortunate that that's the case, but that is the case. Yeah. So I'm gonna be here talking for a little bit. Prophet Hyde was kind enough to let me say a few words to you all tonight. Well, you know I'm in my preaching mode today, and the preaching mode has a different voice. Obviously, right? You've never heard a preacher talk like a school guidance counselor before. No, that's not how it is supposed to preach. We're gonna be fishing here in, let's say, Kathleen Lake. Another thunderstorm. Seems good to me. So I'm Brother Id of the Aegis insect of the Aegis cult, and Prophet Hyde was kind enough to let me say a few words here. Which is very nice, because I have a big announcement for y'all. I'm not going to be teaching you the heavy words of Aegis today, but the words of Aegis, they will be all the same. Yes, I'm happy to announce that there will be a short sermon sometime this week. You might call it an entirely new series, and I hope you'll enjoy it. It's going to be one near and dear to my heart. Just as Aegis is in this, in this room, in all of us, Aegis will be in this series as well. And I aim to do exactly as I aimed to do way back when I first became a cult leader. That's right. I'm gonna spread the words and the wisdom of Aegis. If you enjoy overthinking about moments in media, we're doing some demon summoning? No demon summoning this week. I ain't gonna be doing that, no. This week it's just gonna be a mini sermon, and if you enjoy overanalyzing things, thinking too deeply about them, I encourage you to check out the upcoming media. Yes, I know. It's not even going to be live. It's just going to be a nice little video there. I'm going to call it a mini-sermon. I think the title of the series is going to be called Resonant Words, yes. This week we'll focus on a chapter in the Book of Ages that resonated with me personally. Um, that's why I'm calling them resonant words, you see, because they were very near and dear to me in my childhood, especially. The first episode is, I'm proud to say, nearly complete. All the recording is done, all of the major editing has been taken care of, at least when it comes to the audio. I might add some fancy visuals in this time, but that depends on what Prophet Jekyll has to say about that. Yeah. um, this first episode's going to be about 12 minutes long, um, and it'll cover one of my favorite speeches in all of anime out there. So I really hope you'll enjoy it. It's what I consider one of those golden moments of Aegis' wisdom that I have never seen another attempt to cover. That's right, I looked for it here on YouTube. Yes, anime, I know. You can find wisdom just about anywhere. So please don't balk at it. The series won't only focus on anime, but being an anime character myself, I definitely have some influences there. So yeah, we're gonna be covering one of my favorite speeches from anime. This week's is gonna be a small speech from the series Trigun, and I know a lot of people don't like Trigun. It's very masculine, very masculine anime, and that's okay. If you're not a big fan of the anime, don't worry. We won't be talking too much about the anime itself. We're gonna be talking about the words in the anime. And I think you can enjoy words no matter what you feel about a series. Yes. Maybe you aren't interested in cult activities and the like. The good one. We'll be covering the good one, not the new one. But if you're not interested in cult activities and the like, if you like Trigun as a series, you'd still enjoy it, I think. And I'll encourage you to also attend the mini-sermon. At your leisure, of course, because again, it's going to be one of those pre-recorded sermons that I've been working on for a while now. I've scripted it, I've recorded it, and it hurt my voice something terrible. But I hope you'll enjoy it. All I gotta do now is put some background music to it, and maybe some final edits for some visual appeal. I know a lot of people like their visual appeal. I don't think that's going to be a big concern with this here video. I think most of the fans of the original Trigun series are going to be millennials. So maybe they'll have a bigger attention span, a longer attention span, and they won't need the fancy visuals. Which would be nice for me because I don't really want to get a copyright strike on my channel. So I'm going to play it safe with this series. I'm going to do a voiceover, and I'm not going to show a full scene from the anime. I think I'm going to do some still shots, and then we'll explore the words and the wisdom in this one little speech from Trigun. It's easily missed. A lot of people probably don't pay it too much mind. um, yeah, I just want to say one final aside. Remember, Aegis isn't what's in your pockets. Aegis is what's in you. So please do offer a charitable donation to the Aegis cult if you feel like more content in this vein is something that you might enjoy. After you see it, of course. I'm not asking for your money right off the bat. With that said, I'm going to turn it... What is this, tiny fish? I'm going to turn things back over to Prophet Hyde. Thank you very much, Prophet Hyde. Yeah, you're welcome. Hey there. Hi there. It's Hyde here. Yeah. It's good to be back. Let me just adjust this. I didn't really think that through. Can you have Aegis both in you and your pockets? Well, Aegis is in all of you, even your pockets, I guess. But that's not really the intention of the Aegis cult, you know? So I think it would be better if you actually did what id wanted and just made the charitable donation. That way, he knows if you want more of that content, you know? I think that's the intention there, for id to know if you want more of that content. um, I guess I'll talk a little bit about id and the upcoming series that he didn't really cover, right? Um, I'll just add a little bit, I think. Everybody knows Jekyll and Hyde, right? Like Jekyll and Hyde media. Even if it is based on my life. I didn't write the first Jekyll and Hyde book. You would know if I did. Oh, we're having internet issues, huh? Then I guess I'm gonna start recording after I catch this fish. But I didn't write Jekyll and Hyde, like those characters are public domain, even if they are me, which is very strange to me. It's very strange. It is not like that. It is a wholly unique character, and he's sort of me, you know, in a very exaggerated way. It is more like me, in a lot of respects, than either Hyde or Jekyll. Now, I do exaggerate his cult leader persona. I do exaggerate the money bit. That's not really me. But I did give him a lot of aspects that reflect things that are important to me, right? Especially ones that I don't currently express through Jekyll or Hyde, right? Like, Jekyll has my love for science, the general insanity that I might hold inside of myself at any one time. Starting the recording here. um, oh yeah. We're probably gonna get some frame rates if I do that. Maybe we don't record tonight. Sorry. There's something wrong with my OBS again. So we're not gonna be recording. Yeah. Sorry about that. My CPU spiked to about 80% when I started recording, so I imagine there's a mismatch in my settings. That's okay. I'll fix that later. I can't do it live, unfortunately. Anyway, Hyde, he has my love of geology and weird indie games, and Jekyll, he has my love of being clever, I think, right? Like, Jekyll is just a clever bastard, and he doesn't really care what he says. That's a part of me too, right? But id, I wanted to give id something special. Something I don't see too much of. And I gave him my love for words, right? Not just wordplay, not just puns and jokes, but my love for words as a concept, as a social construct. Like, words are just a series of noises that we make by moving meat flaps around. Yet, to the right listener, they can become something even more than the sum of their parts, right? I think that's very cool, that these words can have a sort of multiplicative meaning to them. These utterances can... I don't know, there's something that has more meaning to them than what we put into them, right? As a listener, when you hear my words, you're interpreting it through the meaning of your own experiences, which I think is very strange. I'm trying to convey things in my own mind to you. I don't exactly elevate words to something like the cornerstone of a cult, like id might do. But I do hold them in a very high regard, in a very strange way. um, if you think about it, there aren't really many ways for you to transfer your thoughts and experiences to another sentient entity, are there? I'm sure you could think of a few. You can use words. You can use sounds like music. Music might convey something. You can do art, like drawings and sculptures and paintings, and you might convey an experience or a vision, something that you see or want people to see. A lot of art is imaginary things, so you can convey thoughts through physical art. And of course there are nonverbal gestures, right? But I don't really have the ability to show you nonverbal gestures, so I can't use those. And as a VTuber, I think I've just focused in on words, because they're really the strongest way I have to convey to you complex thoughts and their meanings, right? You think about it. Music doesn't really convey complex thoughts. It can make you feel something, but it doesn't convey how to build a bridge or the steps you need to do to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, unless the lyrics, which are words, are the instructions to making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Drawings don't well either, unless they're like diagrams for how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And gestures are limited to what is visible. And as I said, people like me, you can't really easily see them, right? Like, if I had an actual live 2D model, maybe you could see it, right? We're hiccuping again. That's not good. We gonna reconnect? Oh, first world internet. Why do you do this to me? I think we're back. Yeah. So I was saying gestures are kind of limited in my sense. If I had a better model, like a live 2D model, or, uh, you know, some kind of 3D model, maybe I could show you that with some mapping. I don't think my computer could handle that, especially at the moment, so we're not going to do that. So we're pretty much stuck with words until we get something like brain chips. Yeah, it's still storming here. It's been storming for like weeks straight, and my head is going crazy. I have felt so very unwell from headaches and the nausea induced by those headaches. It's been hard to work. I'm gonna be honest with that. It's been hard to work, especially indoors. But until we get things like brain chips that allow the instant transmission of our thoughts to other people with brain chips, and I don't think I ever will get a brain chip. That's just not something I agree with as a technology. Words are going to be the most efficient means of me trying to convey things that happen in my own head. A rough week. It feels like it's been longer than a week, but anyone who's suffering from that has my sympathy and my empathy in this case. I hope everyone's been safe with the storms going through. They've been pretty big. I haven't seen the blue sky in what feels like a month. Maybe longer. Anyway, words probably going to be the most efficient way of conveying what's in my head. Yeah, they're not perfect. And I mangle them all the time. But words are the best I got. So, without words, I would have little way of knowing what another person is thinking, feeling, or experiencing. And I would have little way of sharing what I'm thinking, feeling, or experiencing. So, yeah, it inherited my love for words. And I think it's only fitting that his new series will focus on words that I, in particular, found quite significant in my life. That's the intention of the series, right? To share words that I found resonated with something inside of me. As I said as id, or as id said, I'm not really going to be focusing on anime. It's just that a lot of my formative resonant words were anime-based for one reason or another. So the first episode is going to be based on an anime. And the plan for the second one is too. The third one is not, though. So, give it a chance, you know? You might enjoy it. Hi, Squid. Kawaii? Maybe. I don't know. I've never really thought of myself as cute. But yeah. I think the series is going to be interesting for anyone who likes philosophy. I think it's going to be interesting for anyone who just likes media in general, right? Like, I studied, communications in college a little bit. So I always try to, I don't know, try to interpret things, right? I try to look at the deeper meanings of things, and I try to build my own, right? But, like, that's what I do most. I don't care if I'm right. Usually I'm wrong at the end of my interpretations, but I can justify my interpretations. So, it's kind of like the cigarette poetry stream that I did not too long ago. He says, talking about a stream that he hasn't really talked about for... No, I did talk about it last time, too. Yeah, it's a stream that's probably a year and a half old or so. That was one of my earlier streams, the cigarette poetry streams. That was back before I had a capture card, and I was mostly doing indie games as streams, right? Yeah. And I figured cigarette poetry would be very light on the CPU and my GPU. And it was. I really had a lot of fun with that stream, though. So that's one of the big influences for me creating id. I wanted to do that with more media, right? Even if I don't get to the right answer, as per the creators of the media that I'll be analyzing, I do want to analyze it, and I do want to kind of justify. I kind of want to justify my own interpretations of it, even if they're wrong interpretations, right? I think that's going to be the important part, being able to justify my work. I know there's a better way to do my series, right? This first episode, doing it for the love of the game. Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm glad if you enjoy that kind of thing. But that's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be my love of the media. And, I don't know. There are better ways of doing it. Like when you make a video essay, it's best to focus on one thing or one theme, right? And, technically I am. My theme is a speech in the anime Trigun. But at the same time, that's not really the themes that would draw the most attention, right? I could very easily spin it into Frank Marlin teaches Buddhism, for example. I could do that. That's not what I'm going to do, though. That's not how I'm going to do the series. I'm going to pick words that I think resonate with me, and I'm going to explain them, how they resonated with me, and how I interpret them nowadays. Yeah, I think that's the best way for me doing it. I don't want to focus on trying to force a narrative. I know a lot of people like forced narratives, but I want this series to be as personal to me as the character id is personal to me. I know Hyde is very much me, but again, id was born from my own thoughts and my own desires for content creation, and I don't really want to stray from that. I want, for the longest time, I've been struggling with my content, right? I've been trying to be truthful with my content. I've been trying to reflect myself through my content. And I haven't felt it recently, you know? I haven't felt like I've been reflecting myself well enough. I was looking back at a lot of my old content, a lot of shorts especially, and thinking, oh wow, early Hyde was a bit more risque than modern Hyde. Or oh wow, early Jekyll doesn't sound like modern Jekyll. Just little things that I've noticed that have changed over the last almost 2 years now. In another 4 months, it will be 2 years. That's crazy to me. I'm over a year and a half into it. I never really expected to last this long in content creation. And I think a lot of it is that I just haven't been able to make the content that I've wanted to make yet. So I keep trying to make content that I enjoy. Booba Dino. Yeah, the Booba Dino. That was the thing I did. I used to do art streams. I'm never going to do another art stream now that I've lost access to Photoshop 7. Sorry, those are over. I have to learn GIMP now, and GIMP is terrible. But a lot of things have changed over the last year and a half, and yeah, I know it's sad. It's very sad. I'm very sad. Do you know how long it takes me to make a thumbnail nowadays? Way too long. I need to better learn GIMP, and maybe be able to speed that up. I do think GIMP offers more variety, I guess would be the right word. I don't know if it's good variety, but there's more variety there than Photoshop 7 from the early 2000s. So I can do more with it. I don't know how to do alpha masks or whatever, but that's the thing you can do now with modern technology. Not that I'm using modern technology, right? as I've been saying, my computer, uh, it's a potato, and that's fine, you know? I think, I do think restrictions kind of force you to be more creative than you would otherwise be, and, yeah, I like that. I like when my content is creative, right? I like the challenge of turning something into a vision that I have in my head. Now, there are limitations that make it almost impossible for me to get there. So I try my best, and I try to learn new things along the way. And over the last year and a half or so, um, I think I've learned a lot. I've really streamlined the process, and I think I'm starting to finalize the characters that are Jekyll, Hyde, and Id. I'm still not entirely happy with Id's voice. His preaching voice is going to be interesting this time. I think I got into the groove of it about halfway through the mini sermon. So we'll see. Hyde refusing to show hands, that's right. Um, if you're a VTuber and you show hands, I don't know, like, you can, but it's kind of... Any bit of flesh on a VTuber is unimmersive, right? I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. I feel like I have the opportunity to be a character, an anime character. So I can just be an anime character, right? Like, what's the point of me showing you something, um, and reinforcing the idea that I'm not the anime character that I claim to be? What kind of cult leader would I be, showing you that I'm not who I say I am? You know? That's not how the world works. um, but yeah, the series is going to be mostly just words that I found interesting or meaningful. I'm planning to probably do songs as well, right? Like, it's not going to be limited to visual media. Anything with words, whether it be a section of a book or lyrics out of a song. Yeah, I guess I could do filters, but I don't know how to do filters, you know? Uh, Mostly, I think if I'm ever going to do more hand content, it's just going to be gloves, you know? I have a bunch of latex and nitrile gloves. It's not going to be a big deal. Every time I go out and buy a hacksaw and trash bags, I buy some more latex and nitrile gloves. I prefer nitrile when I'm working with chemicals, of course. Um, Jekyll is the chemist, and he always assures me that when you're working with dangerous chemicals like caustics and acids, that you really ought to have nitrile because it has a higher chemical rating than latex, which makes sense, right? Yeah, makes a lot of sense. um, and I do actually have some ideas for more live action content. I've just not gotten around to them yet. I have a lot of ideas for content, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't been recording much. I did record, when did I record last? Maybe early this week? No. It was April Fool's Day, right? Yeah. Interesting shopping receipts? Yeah, absolutely. You gotta buy them from different hardware stores or else you get questioned. I learned that from Jekyll, and it's very practical advice. What was I talking about? I lost my train of thought there. Um, content creation. So I did an April Fool's thing. I was very last minute, and I recorded it a couple of hours before I put it live. Yes, I did it very last minute. Uh, it was an interesting game, you know? It was very interesting. I feel like it was supposed to be a Platform 8 style game, and I like the appeal of that, where you have to figure out what's wrong, and then you can move on. But problem is, I didn't really know half the stuff that was going on in the game, so I had to brute force it, and that made me very tired of the game. It wasn't a bad game, I just think it wasn't meant for me, right? It was like one of those, I don't know. just bad mix-up kind of games for me, which I thought was hilarious in the end. So I prolonged it as much as I could. I didn't purposefully miss things. Like, I was watching it. Sometimes I do watch over my content to see how boring it is at certain sections. I don't mind hearing my own voice. But yeah, I was watching it and I realized um, some of the dialogue was just very slightly changed, and that's why it was wrong, right? So the name in a common dialogue phrase would be slightly wrong, and then I would get it wrong because I thought it was right. I didn't read it all the way through. I was rushing through it, thinking, yeah, that's fine, that's fine. When, no, it wasn't fine at all. That was my own, I don't know. I just wasn't paying attention enough, right? At the end, I did start having a lot of fun messing around and saying that I would end the video, and just not ending the video, just continuing on. The first time I did that, I really was going to end the video, and then I thought, you know what? It's April Fool's Day. Uh, it would be funny if I didn't end the video, and I just kept going for a while. So that's what I did a couple of times, and I enjoyed that a great deal, right? Yeah, I enjoyed that little bit of interaction. I think it was a fun bit, yeah. But I really wasn't planning on doing anything for April Fool's Day. Even last year, I wasn't planning on doing the April Fool's Day video with Hyde. That was a happy little accident where my game didn't record for one reason or another. OBS was being mean to me, as it has been today as well, and I just decided to put it out as an April Fool's Day video when you couldn't see a single thing happening in the game. It was an interesting game about clowns, and Hyde was very foolish, so it was very fitting. Other than that, I recorded a couple games that day as well, after the Powerpuff Girls video that I put out. Yeah, after that I recorded a couple more videos of indie games or indie content. I don't know if I can call them all games. So that was the first time I've recorded indie game content in a very long time. And it didn't feel bad. It didn't feel bad at all. I was happy to do it. It was nice to do it. And I'm gonna try and do more of it. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. So tonight it's coffee wine. And I have an interesting story to tell you about coffee wine. You know, when I drink my coffee wine, I always have very dry wine. um, it's bone dry wine, right? Like bone baked in a desert dry. You could call them desert wines, but that would probably confuse a lot of people who weren't reading very carefully, right? They might mistake it for dessert wine, which tend to be very sweet. But I don't like dessert wines. I like desert wines, right? Yeah. Every time I make coffee wine, I drink it and I realize that there's this semi-sweet kind of flavor to it. And I could never place it right. I always thought it was like the ethanol. And I was just tasting ethanol. But that's not the case. I'm pretty sure now it's not the case. For some reason or another, I was thinking about amaretto, right? Amaretto is a sweet kind of alcohol that's flavored with fruit pits mostly, right? I think it's fruit pits. Things like peach kernels and things like that. Plum pits or whatever else you have. Anything high in cyanide would probably do. Bitter almonds, maybe. That is pretty much the flavor profile of amaretto. Sweet and almondy. You love amaretto? I really don't. I really don't like amaretto. Amaretto is one of those very divisive alcohols. But for some reason I was thinking about it. Because it has a very bitter almond or cherry sort of flavor to it, right? And then I was thinking about coffee wine. in relation to amaretto. And you know what I realized about coffee beans? Coffee beans are just the seeds of a type of coffee cherry. Anything flavor does it, mainly ice cream. Yeah, a lot of people. Amaretto is divisive, right? I'm not a big fan of it because it tends to be very sweet, but I can understand the appeal of the bitterness of it, the kind of buttery flavor. So I don't drink amaretto too much. Amaretto is not for me, but I can understand the flavor. Um, and it's nice in a way, but it's way too sweet for me. So coffee beans are just the seed of a type of coffee cherry, right? So technically, my coffee wine is sort of like amaretto, yeah? It's sort of the same flavor profile, only without any of the sugar. um, and here's a fun fact. I think that's where I get that sort of sweet flavor from. It's kind of reminiscent of cherries, right? Or cherry flavoring. That's the kind of sweetness. The cherry doesn't exactly have a sweet flavor to it. Like I'm thinking tart cherries with lower sugar contents. If you remove the sugar from a tart cherry, I think you would get a very similar flavor profile to coffee wine. Yeah. Oops, all bitter. That's right. But that cherry flavor, I think I interpret it as a sweet flavor. And here's a fun fact for you. Some organic chemistry. That almond-like flavor in cherries, the flesh of cherries, or in amaretto, comes from benzaldehyde. Benzaldehyde is an organic chemical, which is cool because it ends in Hyde. Um, and it is common in cherry flavoring. It's like one of the major flavorants in cherry flavoring. It's so common to me that I often confuse things, like baked goods, for example. I often confuse whether it's flavored like almonds, like through almond extract, or whether it has a cherry taste. Like all the time. Kahlua, too sweet, too sweet. I don't like sweet alcohol. It's not for me, unless it's for baked goods. Well, I still prefer dry alcohol in my baked goods. Um, but yeah, I was thinking back to some biscotti I had, some really good biscotti. It was very rich in almond flavor, and I thought it almost had a sort of cherry flavoring to it. Kahlua pudding? I don't know how to feel about that. I really don't know how to feel about Kahlua pudding. Like, maybe it's okay? Like, I can imagine pudding being... Yeah, you want a sweet pudding. I don't know. Maybe a figgy pudding style pudding would work better with Kahlua. I don't know. I never keep it on hand. I much prefer coffee wine, anyway. But yeah, I was thinking about good biscotti that I had. Very rich in almonds, and what am I using for bait that I'm catching these tiny fish? Tiny fish, okay. And I really couldn't tell whether it was almond extract or cherry flavoring that was making it taste so wonderful. And now I realize they're pretty much the same flavor profile. It's good. I'll take your word for it. I don't think I'll ever make it. I make a lot of strange foods, but I don't think I'll ever make Kahlua pudding. I much prefer dry alcohol. Yeah. Dry alcohol and sweet sweets. That's what I like. I'd never really considered it before, but it makes perfect sense to me that these things all have similar flavor profiles because they're all high in benzaldehyde. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. And me thinking that my wine tasted a bit like old cough syrup also makes perfect sense. I used to think that was just the strong ethanol flavor to it. But no, it is exactly like artificial cherry flavoring. Although, to be fair, real cherries, the flesh of cherries, is flavored a bit with benzaldehyde. Old man taste buds. Yeah, I'm surprised I can taste anything at all. um, yeah, me tasting anything at all, it has to be a very strong flavor. And my coffee wine is. I can't unnotice it either. Every time I take a swig of my coffee wine now, I get that unmistakable cherry aftertaste before it turns into scorpion venom and slithers down my throat like a gelatinous mass. um, but yeah, my coffee wine is a bit like a super dry amaretto, and that made me happy to notice. Let me clear my throat here. There we go. Yeah, sorry about that. That was the scorpion venom trying to get its way back out of my throat. I don't like that. No, it's staying in there. um, yeah, the thing about amaretto, though, as I said, is usually sweetened to amplify the buttery flavor and to limit the bitterness. Some imagery. Yeah, I think so. That's how it feels when I drink it. um, the name amaretto itself means little bitter, right? Like it has the diminutive edo, meaning little. And amaro is another type of bitter alcohol. Really hope your wine isn't gelatinous. No, no, it has a very thick body. I wouldn't call it gelatinous. Just very thick. Extra thick, you know? But amaro is a real type of alcohol too. Coffee wine pudding? I don't think so. I really don't. It's not good. It's not a good idea. Anything that makes it take longer to drink this stuff is a bad idea. But Amaro is another bitter Italian alcohol, and it's typically made with herbs instead of peach pits and the like. So, um, I don't think Amaro is okay. There are some dry Amaros, right? There's some more dry Amaros, so it might be better to say that my coffee wine is closer to Amaro in the sense that it's very dry, and some Amaros, some bitters can be very dry. Usually they're not, though. Even those are sweetened. Yeah, okay. That's all I really wanted to talk about with regards to my coffee wine. Um, and I figured we're going to have one more topic, but it's going to be a long one tonight. This is going to be a long one, so buckle up. Alright? So obviously we're playing a fishing sim game again. Say that 3 times fast. Fishing game sim again. Fishing game sim again. Fishing game sim again. Fishing game sim again. A fun fact for you, I actually have other fishing games, right? I even have other Switch fishing games. Fishing games used to be one of my favorite genres for gaming. I would at least have one per console or handheld, right? I do wonder if this one's getting boring, right? I was looking at my stream metrics, and I noticed a lot more people were enjoying, or at least watching, the second VOD for, or not the second VOD, the second stream for Centum. I know my content isn't very varied at the moment. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. It's gonna put out his sermon. I've got more indie games in the pipeline. And, Fisherman has more fishing games? Yeah, shocking. It's very shocking. I do have more. So if this one's getting boring, maybe I'll try a different one sometime soon. We'll see how I feel. I really like streaming this one, though. I can do a lot of talking while I stream this one. It's very mindless, whereas other ones kind of require either more motion control because they're on the Switch, and that's terrible. Uh, I'm going to hit my microphone, for sure. Or, I don't know, they're just more involved and less fun. This one I can just reel and cast, reel and cast. It's very easy to stream and to talk while I'm doing it. But speaking of the fisherman, yeah, I went fishing sometime not too long ago. I actually went out in the real world and went fishing. Cat goes fishing. I'm not a cat. Well, I'm not a cat right now. I could be a cat, but I'm not going to be. But yeah, not too long ago, I went out, um, and I fished in the real world. It was interesting, too. It was an interesting day. I left my house sometime around 4:30 a.m., I think it was. Maybe a little bit earlier than that. It was pitch black outside. It looked like something out of a horror movie. but worse. And immediately, as I stepped out the door, there was a bright flash and a quick rumble. No, there's a game, Cat Goes Fishing. I've never heard of it. I might have to look into it if I remember. I have a lot of fishing games, and every time I see one, I consider picking it up. So maybe. But yeah, as soon as I stepped out the door, there was a flash and a quick rumble, lightning in the pitch darkness. I hate that. Like, it wasn't raining until I stepped out the door. And then this bright flash just illuminates the world. And it's such a strange kind of lighting, too, right? It almost feels wrong. It casts a purplish hue on the encroaching darkness, and it's only there for a brief moment before the darkness swallows everything back up. Lightning flashes in the pitch blackness of a deep, deep dark night. Yeah, that's some scary stuff. By the time I was putting my stuff in the car, the rain was pouring, but I didn't stop, you know? I decided a little bit of rain isn't gonna stop me, even if that little bit of rain is a lot of rain. And it was. It was a lot of rain. So I drove off into the gaping maw of inky black unknown, and it felt like the universe was kind of swallowing me as I drove along those, let's say, not so well maintained roads. Even the high beams, when I turned them on, could barely cut through the gloom. I had to drive so slowly through some of the winding country roads to take me home, to the place I belong. Country roads, Mountain Mama. But I eventually got there, to my fishing spot. Safe and sound, surprisingly. Did not run into any deer as I was driving through the forest. Did not hit any cars that were parked along the road because you can't see them through the rain or the darkness. So that was a good start to the day. Not dying on the road. And it wasn't exactly legal to fish when I got there, so not until a certain time. I sat in my car while it rained, and for about an hour, I was really the only one there. Which was nice, right? Like, you like being the only one there at a fishing spot. That means you have the whole place to yourself. But after about an hour, two trucks pulled up right beside my car, and it was still raining. But they were jerks, and despite me being there first, they decided to rush out of their trucks and set up a pop-up kind of gazebo-style tent, I guess you'd call it, at one of the better fishing spots along the waterway. They were real jerks about it. So I had to get out in the rain and put some stuff at my own spot, which was a slightly worse spot, but it was still a good spot, right? It was where I was going to fish if the first spot was already taken. And now it was, because they were jerks. So I got out in the rain, and I put my stuff down, and I claimed my spot. And shortly after that, another car came. And it wasn't just adults this time. It was like a father and some kids. Which is always scary to see. And unfortunately, they kind of crowded me to my left along the bank. It wasn't too bad, right? Like, they gave me enough space. When you're fishing along a crowded bank, you do kind of have an etiquette, right? Like, anglers are going to give you a little bit of space. Fishing in the rain is a mixed bag. Fishing in the rain means the water surface is disrupted, there's more mud in the water, and that makes it harder for fish to see you on the bank, which is a good thing, right? Like, fish have very good vision in the water. I think it's something like 270 degrees, maybe 300 and something degrees. It's a lot, right? They don't have a full perfect circle, but they have a lot of vision in the water, and they can kind of see behind them a little bit. I remember that. Yeah, they can kind of see behind them a little bit when they're in the water. So you do have to be wary of going to the banks when it's not raining, when it's sunny and clear out. They will see you, and then they won't bite. However, it is a mixed bag because when there's a lot of mud in the water, fish tend to be less active, right? Fish have gills, and those gills are tiny little filaments that need to be in contact with water in order to take the oxygen, the dissolved oxygen, out of the water. Did you know that? There's oxygen dissolved in water. Um, just like a soda has carbon dioxide um, dissolved in the soda. And if you shake the soda, the carbon dioxide comes out of it in all of those foaming bubbles. That's not chemical. That's just dissolved physically in the water. And the same thing is true for oxygen um, in these natural waterways. The water is in, or the oxygen is in the water dissolved. Oh, look, it's a bright, clear day. You don't see those too often. I know I don't. But yeah, because the water is muddier, the gills get clogged. Those little filaments in the gills get clogged with sediment. So they can't really breathe too well. It makes them not want to be in the sediment-rich water. So what happens is they tend to hide behind rocks where the water is slower. Here's a fun fact for you. Here's some more science for you. The faster the water is moving, the more sediment it can carry. And not just the more sediment, but the larger the grain of sediment, right? So I'm sure you know what sand is, and I'm sure you know what mud is, or clay. Those are two different microscopic sizes of sediment. Clay is very, very tiny, a very tiny grain, and sand, you can see each grain with your eye. So, faster waters can carry sand, and slower waters can only carry clay. And even slower waters carry finer grains, and even faster waters carry big boulders sometimes. You see that a lot in big floods, right? You can see cars getting washed away. The same thing is true for sediment in the water. And fish really don't like when there's a lot of sediment in the water because they can't get much oxygen. And they have to fight to maintain their position in faster currents. So they're going to go towards slower water, where there's an obstruction causing a slower zone behind the rock, or sometimes in front of the rock, depending on the hydrodynamics of it. That's not really my field of study, though. Generally, they tend to hang out around obstructions that slow the water, or near the banks, or sometimes in very deep holes where the surface water is faster, but the lower water is slower. They can hide out there pretty well. Those are great places to fish in the rain, but it is a lot harder. You kind of have to be able to read the water to know what's going on, and you have to predict the depth of the water to know where fish are likely to be. But that's a technique that any angler really ought to be working on, right? That's a technique that is pretty much fundamental to fishing. So if you don't have that, work on it. Yeah. Anyway. So the father and the kids crowded me on my left, on the bank to the left. And I still had a lot of space on my left. I had enough space that I could cast. And on my right, there was still no one for a good while. So I was happy enough. I could just cast downstream a little towards my right, and everything would be okay. Yeah. And by the time it was legal to start fishing, you know, the banks were packed with a lot of people. So many of them that it would have been impossible for me to switch spots. And that's just fishing, you know. Fishing is like that in very rural areas. When the season opens up for certain species of fish, or they do some kind of rush event for species of fish. I don't want to give too much away, but if there were a sort of gold rush for fish, for example, you will find people just along the banks, all over the place, crowding people. Elbow to elbow, pretty much. And I don't like that kind of fishing, but, you know, that's really how it goes. Everybody takes a day and Even if it's raining, even if it's freezing out, they'll go and line up along the banks, on top of one another. But I was smart, you know? That was my own choice. I was very smart with the spot I picked. Because exactly the same reason that we were talking about. I picked water that most people can't really fish well. Reading the water is very important, and a lot of anglers, not just me, know the basics of reading water. It is the #1 skill of an angler. If you can read the water, you can anticipate where your fish might be, or how your lure or bait might travel downstream. And that's important for presenting lures and baits. A lot of fish are ambush predators, and they have great eyesight. Even in muddy water, they'll see the flashing of a lure pretty well, or the bright bait that you use if you're using a bright bait. They'll see that even in turbulent waters, and they'll go to strike it when it moves past them. But you have to present it right, right? Like, that's the big deal when you're presenting a lure or a bait. You don't want the fish to see any of the tackle, any of the line. You only want them to see the lure. Fish whisperer? No, no, I'm not a trout tickler. And I know that sounds weird, but trout tickling is historical. It's kind of a lost cultural touchstone, trout ticklers. They were real people, right? And they would move up from behind a trout in the water, and they would hold them upside down once they got there, and they would just be very passive in the water. It's a common response for fish to calm down when they're held upside down, because they have no way of knowing where they are. They don't know what's going on at all. So they just kind of shut down a little bit. If you ever need to remove a hook, keep the fish in the water and hold them upside down. It makes it a lot easier. You don't have to fight them so much. But yeah, they're ambush predators, and they will stay behind rocks and obstructions, or on the sides of runs, especially towards banks in less turbulent waters. They can be elsewhere, but yeah. You kind of have to predict where the fish are going to be. And that takes experience. That takes a lot of practical experience. You can learn about these skills in books or on lovely documentary series. There are a lot of documentary series that I used on YouTube that are just free to you if you want to watch them. Feel free. Yeah. um, I don't know if fish can feel fear. I'm not sure. I don't know if they're sapient in the sense that they can feel emotions. But definitely not suffocating would be good. The less you can handle a fish, the better it is for the fish. Especially if you're doing catch and release, right? If you're doing catch and release, you want to handle the fish as minimally as possible. And sometimes they'll fight you to keep their, they'll fight you from getting the hook out of their little, I guess, lips would be the best way to describe them. Their mouth parts. So, first of all, you want to wet your hands. Fish are very slimy creatures. Like, a lot of people think snakes are slimy. They're not. Snakes are very dry. They're dry and rough, but sometimes smooth, depending on their skin. They're not slimy at all. Whereas fish are the slimiest things I've ever touched. And that's saying something. Yeah. Don't know a lot of fishing series? Oh yeah, Deadliest Catch. Deadliest Catch is interesting. It's not really my kind of fishing. I don't really do a lot of ocean fishing. I think River Monsters with Jeremy Wade would probably be a better resource. But, that's not exactly what I was thinking about. If you type in fishing reading the water documentary into YouTube, you will get like entire documentary videos about how to present lures to fish in the water, or how to read the water, or how to, I don't know, fly fish. There are lots of educational videos on YouTube. I'm not just talking about television series. These are things that were made by companies to help people fish. Because if people catch fish, they're going to use more fishing products. Makes sense, right? If people enjoy a hobby, they'll spend more money on it. So, yeah, obviously, they're going to help you catch fish. So they're fantastic resources, especially for beginners. Yeah, I highly recommend a lot of them on YouTube. A lot of good ones are out there. For free, a lot of the time, even if they didn't used to be. Like, maybe they were made for a VHS tape, and now they're just there on YouTube forever. Yeah, yeah, a lot of them were companies, and yeah, mostly it's about selling products. um, I could not tell you how many fishing hooks I go through in a year. Has to be at least a couple dozen. How much fishing line I go through in a year? Has to be, oh, maybe 100 yards every year. And that's not including me replacing the line on my reel every year. You're supposed to do that. I didn't do it this year. I felt lazy. So my line was probably a little bit weaker than it should have been. That's okay. That's okay. Fishing test is overrated to begin with, right? Like, when you buy fishing line, um, it usually comes in how many pounds of force it can withstand. So it'll be like 2 pound test, 4 pound test, 6 pound test, or so on and so forth. 8 pounds, 10 pounds, 12 pounds, 16 pounds. Usually when you get to about 10 pounds, they'll start doing triple braided. And I hate that. I much prefer monofilaments. Um, that's neither here nor there. The point is, yeah, that's the minimum amount of force before the line will break. So the worst part of the line will break at that amount of force. But so long as you're not using the worst part, it's actually much stronger than that in general. That's the average. What's the highest poundage? I don't know. It'd be like deep sea kind of stuff. Probably triple braided, gigantic ropes instead of lines. I don't use that stuff. I use very ultralight tackle, right? Like, my fishing rod is an ultralight rod, and it's actually very small. I don't really like using big rods. I do a lot of tight area fishing, right? The longer the rod is, the more force you can get from the tip, right? It's like a lever in physics. You can get more force the further away the maximum point of the lever is from the fulcrum, I think you would call it. Kraken-proof lines. I don't think they make those. Maybe, maybe spider thread or spooled up into a triple braided line. I don't think Krakens can be caught. But yeah, yeah. I use very, very ultralight tackle. And I've modified mine in the sense that I've broken my fishing rod many times, and now it is much shorter than it used to be. And it works fine for me. I've been using the same fishing rod since... Oh, wow, since, I want to say since I started driving. So it's been a while. And, I do have a longer rod, I just never use it. Like, you can cast further because you have more energy the longer your, fishing rod is, right? But that's never really a big problem for me. With the right casting technique, you can cast pretty darn far with an even shorter rod, especially with a nice reel. Maybe more improvised. Yeah, I guess that might be the better word for it. I've replaced eyelets. I've done a lot of work to my rod. My rod has... I don't know. I don't think I could fish as well with any other rod at this point. It's the only one I've ever used since all the way back then. I would feel so much worse using anything else. Yeah, well, if you treat something that's made well correctly, it will last a long time. And then I get used to how it's worked, and I feel bad when things change. I don't like it. I don't like change. Even if it's better, like, I'll still think it feels off. So with the current rod, you know, I feel like I can catch fish with it. All of my practical experience fishing as an adult is with the same rod. Well, most of it. I have used the longer rod. I won't lie. I've just used it very sparingly and very specific reasons. If I had to loan my smaller rod to someone, for example, I would go back to my bigger rod. But, you know, I much prefer the smaller one for a lot of reasons. You know? I was telling a story about why I picked the spot I picked, right? That's what's in my notes, at least. Catch the tuna clownfish. That's not a clownfish, that's a tigerfish? I don't know fish. Deep sea fish are very strange to me. But yeah, I catch fish. I know how to fish. So I picked a good spot, for me in particular, because I knew what I was going to be fishing with that day. And I picked a very fast run. And it was faster because the water was higher because of all the rain. And I was getting soaked. And I knew that the fast run would carry my bait under the rocky bank that I was standing on, a little bit downstream, where there were likely fish just hiding outside of the currents. Yeah. Fish in general? Yeah, I catch fish in general. Although I catch mostly specific fish. They're freshwater. mm, I've caught saltwater fish a couple of times in my life. I'm not very good at it. It's because the water is very different, right? In the open ocean, even in bays for that matter, fishing is very different. Because I can't read the water. I don't know where the rocks are. I don't know where the obstacles are. I can have vague ideas if there are visible obstructions. Things like reefs and big boulders or piers, for example. But other than that, like, you need a fish finder. There's no other way, unless you see big schools of fish. And then the bigger fish follow the smaller schools of fish, because they will eat each other if given the opportunity. But yeah, I chose a fast run where if I cast upstream, the current would pull my bait down to run under the rocks, where I knew the fish would be waiting because the water was high and full of mud. That's why my right side, which was downstream, was a bad place for most people to fish. See, most people, they don't really drift their baits like that. If they do, they're using something like a bobber and salmon eggs, which is a great combination, don't get me wrong. Salmon eggs and a bobber drifted through a run, always a solid choice. That's what I used to use back in the day. uh, but a lot of people don't do that. They do what I call plop fishing, and the plop fishing style is when you have like corn or waxworms or worms or dough bait, and you just kind of put a lot of weight on it so that the currents don't carry it, and you just plop it in the water, and you sit there with your line not moving, and you hope and you pray that a fish stumbles upon your bait. I don't like doing that, and it was a very stupid thing to do in a fast run. I don't think that's a good idea. Because fish aren't going to be in the fast runs most of the time. They're going to be off to the side. And you can use the fast run to carry your lure or your bait, but I wouldn't plop something into it and use a lot of weight to keep it there. Anyway, because I knew most people would be plop fishing, and I was fishing at the top of a run, I thought that no one would crowd me on the right side. But I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. By the time I had caught a couple fish, an old man and two children showed up. They got right next to me on my right. Closer than the usual angler would would find comfortable for casting, like literally at my elbow. And yeah, um, I'll be blunt here. They were kind of assholes. Not the kids. I guess not the kids. The old man was just an asshole. Okay. Uh, they were plot fishing with worms in this fast run, right where my lore was going, and I was irked by that. But I didn't say anything. You know, it's fine, right? Like it's fine. They can do what they want, and I don't own the water, and they don't own the water either. Oops, sorry. So they can do what they want. I just continued to fish how I was, but I retrieved a bit earlier. Um, and that was okay. Yeah, like, I'll give props to the old man. He was taking out two youths. He was mentoring them in the art of angling. Or he was trying to mentor them in the art of angling. And I'll give him props for that. Getting the younger generations involved in outdoor activities. You know what? Sure, okay. Kudos to you. I appreciate that. That's great. But I didn't say anything. I just adjusted myself, and I tried not to, not to cast in front of them. Yes, yes, manners are important. And I thought it was fine, you know? I thought it was fine. I'll just move down, I'll cast upstream a little bit further, I'll retrieve a bit earlier. But he was mentoring these children, and it got worse. Because he didn't really supervise them. So all those props that I gave him, I'm taking them back. So the child immediately at my elbow cast his line in the most ridiculous way that I've ever seen. And it landed right next to my feet, on dry land. I want you to think about that. This is a fishing line with a hook at the end, a very sharp hook. And because they were fishing as children, they were probably using barbed hooks. When you do catch and release, you blunt the barb in order to make the barb easier to take out of the fish. But when you still have the hook from the store, it's going to have a barb at the end. It makes it harder for the fish to pull it out. That's so you can keep the fish. It's a lot harder to keep a fish on a barbless hook. Yeah, someone's gonna lose an eye. I've had a lot of close calls like that. I've had a lot of close calls like that from other people casting. And that's what we call dangerous when a child does it. Or when an adult does it, I call it a dick move. Because they're being assholes, you know? Only went fishing once. Yeah. It's like using a gun. Know where you're throwing it, right? Like, know where you're pointing. Yes. Always make sure there's no one behind you when you cast. That's absolutely one of the first things you should teach children when you're teaching them how to fish. So he was not supervising them well, and I would argue not mentoring them well. But, it was a child, so accidents happen. Clearly learning how to fish. So I smiled and I cautioned the kid, and I said, okay, that's dangerous, be a bit more careful, please. And I gave the old man a look, you know? I gave the old man a look, but not the kid. The kid got a smile, the old man got a look. The look saying, hey, this is not cool, show me some etiquette, right? There is angling etiquette, right? And knowing where you're casting is one of the rules of angling etiquette. Making sure you're not hitting someone with your casting. Which is why you don't stand right beside another person, so that they can cast. Yeah, that's etiquette. But rule 1 is not to send hooks flying into other anglers. And after I gave the old man the look, he eventually cautioned the kid when he made eye contact with me, and I had my murderous look in my eyes. But okay. Once is a mistake. I've done it. Like when I was a kid, I'm sure I did something similar. Things happen. You can't monitor 2 children at once. I get it. I get it. Things happen. Mistakes happen. But if they happen again... But I let it go at that. And, I did have to change how I was casting. I was flick casting from my right. Freak accident? Yeah. Yeah. Manslaughter charges, that's absolutely right. I've seen some freak accidents with fishing hooks. And because they are barbed, they're very hard to remove from human skin. I've gotten fishing hooks stuck in myself a couple times. Yeah, they leave some nasty scars if you're not careful. You have to go to the hospital, and usually they'll cut them out, in fact, if they go all the way through. So it's nasty, it's not good, it's very unsafe. So please be mindful. But yeah, I was flick casting. And flick casting, it's not overhead. Your tip of the rod is pretty much parallel to the ground. And because I'm right-handed, I flick cast from the right most of the time. Out into the stream, or the river, or the waterway, or the lake, whatever it is. I typically flick cast. But because there was a kid immediately at my elbow, I had to switch to left side flick casting, which is a lot harder for me. Like, I can do it. It's not hard in the sense that I can't do it. It's just harder because I'm used to doing it from the right. But I've done it a lot in tricky waters. If there's mountain laurel, for example, crowding your right, you'll have to cast from your left. Otherwise, you get the risk of getting snagged on a tree, which happens a lot. So you have to be kind of careful how you cast. You gotta anticipate how you're going to cast. And you've gotta have the experience of casting in tight quarters. So you need to be able to do overhand casting. You need to be able to do drop casting. You need to do flick casting from both sides if necessary. So that wasn't a big deal. I could do it. I corrected myself. So I wouldn't cast into this kid and catch him like he almost caught me. What can I say? I even changed the water that I was casting at a little bit, right? Like, I went further upstream, like I said. And I retrieved my cast before it got to these kids, so that they could fish in front of them. I really don't think they would have caught anything. The way they were fishing, flop fishing in the fast run like that, I don't think they would have caught anything anyway, but I gave them their chance because they're kids, and they're learning, and it's fun to catch a fish. So on the off chance that they ever would catch a fish that way, I gave them their opportunity. And a few casts later, wouldn't you know it, I again get a hook flying towards me from my right. This time, though, it plops down in the water, right at my feet. And you know what I did? I looked back over at the kid, and I smiled. He was standing no more than a meter from me at this point, because the old man had cautioned him to move down a little bit. But it's still well within the range of my fishing rod. Like, fishing rods at their smallest tend to be, what, 5, 6 feet? Yeah, so he was well within me touching him with the mid part of my fishing rod, even a meter away. That's too darn close. But I found it kind of impressive that he could cast at me at that distance and not hit me. So, again, I smiled, and I cautioned him, but I was getting pretty irked at this point. And, not at the kid so much as at the old man who wasn't supervising and instructing him, right? Like, to be perfectly clear, I'm an angler. I'm a fisherman. Fishermen are famed for their patience, right? And he was wearing mine pretty darn thin at this point, the old man. And I looked over at the old man after cautioning the kid again. And the old man, he finally comes over and he kind of gives the half apologetic look. Like he's not really sorry, but he'll pretend to be sorry. I don't know. You kind of develop patience as a fisherman. If you don't, you're not catching fish. But, yeah, that little look he gave me kind of annoyed me too. But he moved the kitty a little bit further away from me. And I was like, cool. Alright. Kids make mistakes all the time. Sometimes multiple in a row. He'll get it down, and, this'll be the end of it. I won't have to say anything more. And I'll leave it at that. Or so I thought. A few more casts, and a few minutes later, I almost hooked into another fish. Got off my hook. Plop comes the hook again, right at my feet. And I thought to myself at that moment, no. No, that's too much. So I look over it, smile at the kid again. Now it's an exaggerated smile because this is the third time that I've had to say something to this kid and to this old man. And at this point, you know how I feel, right? I feel... Oops. I'm gonna drop my controller there. Drop my Joy-Con. At this point, I feel like I've been disrespected as an angler. I feel like I've been shown no common courtesy as a fisherman. Think about my experience. I got to this spot first, hours before it was legal to fish, just so I could fish this one spot. 3 strikes, you're out. It was probably more than 3 strikes, but yes. At that point, yeah, it's not great. But I got to this spot hours before it was legal to fish, because I wanted to fish it. Because I knew most people wouldn't be able to fish it, so that I would have space to fish it how I wanted to fish it. And this old man and these 2 children came hours after it all began, after it was already crowded, and they crowded me. The old mentor didn't supervise the kids, and I've nearly taken at least 3 hooks from the wild casting of this kid on multiple occasions. I say at least because I know it was more than 3. It was just the 3rd time that it landed at my feet, right? Like before this, his casting was still wild. But he was improving. So good on him. He was improving. But the 3rd time it hit near my feet, near my person. Yeah, that was too much for me. Yeah. That's when the kitty gloves came off, as it were. So yeah, sure, I didn't own the water. And just because I got to the spot first, and I was there so early and they were there so late, doesn't mean that others can't fish it, that others can't come up and do exactly what they were doing. But at this point, it was so very discourteous to me to do all of these different things to put me in danger or just annoy me with their presence. Most anglers will avoid that kind of discourtesy. And they won't do it. These things are, exactly as has been said, against the common angler courtesy. But you know what I did? I said, fine. Fine. That's how you want to play. That's how you want to play the game. So the exact opposite is also true. Just because you're standing there, where I used to be casting, and I decided not to cast there anymore, so that you could fish it, doesn't mean that you own that section of water, and that I can't fish it either. So I went exactly back to how I was casting before. And, yeah. I was casting my line and letting the lure drift all the way under where their feet would be. I wasn't casting at their feet. I was letting my lure drift through the water underneath them, where their plop fishing lines would be. And, yeah. Just because you're sitting there or you're standing there doesn't mean I can't cast there, right? That's exactly what you've been doing to me. Oops. I cut my line. That's exactly what you've been doing to me for the last, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. Throwing hooks my way, even. So in fact, how I was doing originally. And you know what? Because I knew how to fish that water, I actually caught fish there, right from under their feet where they were standing on the bank. Yes, I caught fish from underneath their feet. I love doing that to fishermen that are just jerks. I like casting my line and letting it drift down through where they're fishing and pulling a fish right out from underneath them. Because, you know, that's just where I fish. I know the water. Good, yes. I... You know the thing that really irked me about the experience, and aside from nearly catching so many hooks, it was that they chose to crowd me, and they didn't have to, right? I know I said the bank was crowded, and it was, but there was a deep, calm hole downstream, and the spot was wide open. I could see it from where I was fishing, so I know they could see it where they were fishing too. The three of them could have easily fished it together, right? The old man could have plopped right in the middle, and on either side he could have the kids, and their lines would just be sitting out there in the water, and they wouldn't have to worry about the fast currents, and their worms might actually have a chance of catching something. They would have had more luck there. I guarantee it. And you know what? They didn't catch a single fish when they were crowding me. So that's, I don't know. That's how I saw it. And I caught a few of them right in front of them. And after a while, like, I sound like a monster for saying this, but I don't care. After a while, one of the kids got discouraged, and I overheard him say, "I want to catch a fish like he is." Which is kinda music to my ears at that point, because I'm the he that's catching the fish. And the old man, he had a complicated look on his face. And he did exactly what every other angler does when the person beside you is catching fish. And he said, "Hey, young man, what are you using as bait?" And I told him. And he didn't have it. Of course he didn't have it. And he blamed the difference on our baits, and not the fact that he couldn't read the water at all. I've always said that I'm not a kind or nice person, and I'm not. I show respect to people until they show me that they don't really deserve the respect I give them. That's my default as a person, to show you respect until you don't deserve it. And I was shown no respect after so many incidents, and so many times I gave forgiveness and caution. I don't feel bad about it, not one bit. Like, it's not great that the kids couldn't catch fish, but the old man was doing a piss-poor job of supervising the kids. And I would go a step further. I would say he did a piss-poor job of actually mentoring those kids on how to fish. The old man should have taken the hint the second time I gave him the death stare. Sure, it was passive-aggressive of me. But, come on now. How many times are you going to take that look from a person before you say, "You know what, maybe I'm not supervising these kids correctly"? But yeah, no, he was doing a bad job of supervising the kids, and he was doing a bad job of mentoring the kids. The first things that need to be taught are, like, common etiquette as, as an angler, right? That you don't cast at people. That you know what's behind you when you're casting overhand, or what's beside you when you're flick casting. And you don't cast at people. You aim at the water. You know how your line's going to be controlled. That's the first thing. And then the rest is what matters, right? The rest you can pick up along the way. But if you're going to be like that, fishing right next to a person, and casting at their feet somehow, you're not going to have a long time fishing around adults when you grow up, when you're no longer a kid. I've seen fights break out over less, right? Like, that is a huge slight to an angler. It's serious, right? Those fishing hooks, they can get stuck in a person. They can blind people. I've seen it happen. I've seen reports of people trying to pull on snagged lines, their lines unsnag. The hook comes flying at them like a whip, and it goes into their face or their eye or their neck, and they get these horrific wounds where they lose their eye. And you're just letting this kid whip around a giant hook on a weighted line? No, you don't do that. Obviously, the second thing you teach is not to hurt other people. Like that's the second rule of etiquette, other than spacing. And yeah, after that you can teach them about how to read the water, how to choose the right bait or lures for the water. Yeah, yeah, no, it kind of ruined my fishing day. At that point, I had already caught my limit. I was catching and releasing some, though. So I caught my limit, and I had a couple that I had kept. So I was pretty much done fishing at that point, especially after I caught the fish out from underneath them. And after, I don't know, 10 minutes of me casting into where they were trying to cast, they finally got the hint that they had overstayed their welcome, and they had wore my patience thin. I was asked not too long ago what actually annoys me. I gotta tell you, that's something that really annoys me. Um, it's not so much the kid's fault, and I will say that every single time. The kids don't know any better. They're trying to learn how to fish. It was the mentor's fault. That was a bad mentor. And I will never say any differently. That was a bad mentor. But after about 10 minutes of me doing that to them and pulling fish or two out of there, um, they decided to leave. And they blamed the bait. Oh, sorry kids, I don't have any minnows and they're only biting on minnows. No. You read the water incorrectly and you were using the wrong bait. I'm sorry, that's all there was to it. If you had maybe floated a salmon egg down there, instead of using weighted worms, you might have had a chance. And you might have caught something. But you didn't. And then you irked me. By putting me in danger. Yeah, I think that's what annoys me. Putting me or my loved ones in danger. Very annoying. Don't do it. And after they left, I took a couple more casts. Oops. And at that point, it was still raining. It was pretty cold. And I decided, ow, my back is sore. I'm gonna call it a day. And I did. I called it a day not too long after that. I packed up my stuff, and I left. Because I was done. And, the fish were delicious, you know? Coated in flour, fried in butter. I couldn't complain. The cleaning was not nice. I never like cleaning fish. I'll do it, but I don't know. Cleaning fish is a very difficult task, especially with the bones. Yeah, yeah. It might be an understatement for most people, but I found it very annoying. It was very irksome. But yeah, I had a lovely dinner, and, I don't know. I was happy with my purchase of the fishing license. This year, I wasn't quite sure if I was going to go fishing. I don't know if I said that during the streams, but I felt like I needed to get outside more. I haven't been outside much, especially recently, because it's been raining non-stop for what feels like a month. I haven't seen the blue sky in so very long, and it's getting to me. It's really getting to me. And I've had a headache because the pressure changes, essentially, of these storms just gives me headaches every day. Yeah, I got a good breakfast, or dinner out of the ordeal. Breakfast. Kinda true. I got a good dinner out of it, so that's good. I'm happy about that. I caught some nice fish, right? Like, they weren't the minimum size, they were bigger than the minimum size. I threw the minimum size ones back so other people could catch them. And I took the ones that I could fry in a pan and have a good dinner with. And that's exactly what I did. They were delicious. I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, speaking of fish, and as eating fish, I remember I watched a lot more television as a kid. I know this sounds like a strange segue, but just roll with it for a second. Some of my favorite shows were things like Survivor Man with Les Stroud, and whatever Bear Grylls was doing as a Survivor Channel kind of show. Even back then, I liked Les Stroud's Survivor Man more than whatever Bear Grylls show was called. Man vs. Wild, I think it was. And now, knowing how fake Bear's show was, just makes me appreciate Stroud's work even more. Like, Stroud did all of the filming himself. He carried all of the filming equipment, all of the cameras, all the batteries, and whatever supplies he could scrounge up in the local environment. And he actually did it in these wild and isolated locations. Bear Grylls? Yeah, he got very weird. But so did Les Stroud. Like, Les Stroud did a Finding Bigfoot episode towards the very end. He did a Finding Bigfoot episode after his relevance was gone. Les Stroud also did all of the music for his show. And I'm pretty sure he did a lot of the editing for the early ones. But Bear Grylls, like, knowing that he staged environments and he had a camera crew following him around, I it really soured my interest in Bear Grylls. And I remember one time he found a dead, quote unquote, found a dead salmon on the bank of a river. I think it was in Alaska. And it looked desiccated and slightly decomposed. Very raw, half eaten by something by the looks of it. Don't do that in real life, by the way, but he ate it. He was eating that desiccated, rotten salmon. And it made me remember. Don't do that. First of all, because it's probably a bit rotten. You're probably gonna get a foodborne illness, especially if you don't cook it. But even if you do cook it, a lot of foodborne illness is caused by the toxins that are created by foodborne illness bacteria, right? It's like botulism. It's not the bacteria that is getting you. It's the toxin they create that we use for Botox. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's the second point. Yes, I'm glad you remember this. I'm glad I'm not making it up, because sometimes I can't trust my own memory. But I'm glad I'm not making it up. But yeah, don't do that for parasite reasons, of course. It's why freshwater sushi is such a rarity. Now, to be fair, he did do it in Alaska. I think that might make it slightly safer. Still very dangerous. But when water warms, parasites grow in size and number. So, freshwater parasites are pretty darn common, even in Alaska. It doesn't mean that they don't exist in colder water too. So, yeah, cook your fish. Don't eat rotten fish by the riverbanks. I think that's all I wanted to talk about today. So we're gonna end it here. I had a good time. Oh, one more time for those who weren't here at the beginning. Brother Id will be releasing a small mini-sermon, approximately a 12-minute long video, sometime this week. That will probably be the video this week, along with some shorts from last week. Opinions on sushi? Bland, I can't taste it. Interesting texture. I can't taste it. It doesn't have any taste, it's just springy. It's all texture. Not terrible. I like the sushi rice more than I like the sushi. With the rice vinegar and, you know, it's pretty good. I can't taste sushi itself, though. It doesn't have much flavor. Never does, no matter what I get. Yeah, I can't get real wasabi though, you know. All we get in the States for the most part is horseradish, which I do like. I do like horseradish. But even then, like, it's very one-dimensional. It's just sulfuric acid in your nose, which I don't particularly enjoy, but that's exactly what happens with the chemicals. They essentially... The thing with horseradish and wasabi is that they're mostly a sulfur-based burn, right? So it's the same thing as, like, getting gassed in a trench in World War I or II. You get this sulfur gas and everything in your mucous membranes turns into sulfuric acid. That's really what you're getting there. So I don't like that. Yeah. Sometime this week, expect a video from Hyde, and I would be very happy if you gave it a chance. You don't have to. You never have to watch something you don't think you're going to enjoy. But I do think that even if you don't like anime, you might enjoy the philosophy aspects. Love wasabi, horseradish, mustard? Yeah, I like mustard. I do not like... I've never had real wasabi, so I can't say. And I don't mind horseradish, I just don't like having a lot of it. Yeah. Chili heat's okay. I don't find chili to be too hot. You have to get more than just chili to be hot. But... Szechuan peppercorns are pure poison. I will say that much. They're pure poison. I love the taste. I love the smell. I love them flavoring a dish. But if you ever eat one, or if they're ever ground up and you get a little shard of them, and that gets stuck in your throat, that's pure hell. You feel like you're choking, and you can't stop choking, and you eventually just die. Yeah, talking from experience there. Again, please do check out Brother Id's video, if you feel like it. You don't have to if you don't, but please don't be hesitant to watch it. Yeah. It's not like I'm keeping tabs on it or anything. I won't deduct your Hyde social credit points if you don't watch it. I get it. Not all content is for everyone. Ouch. Yes, ouch indeed. Choking on peppercorns is not fun. They're chemical weapons. I've always said so. But yeah. I'm not going to deduct social credit from you if you don't watch it. I just think, it's the kind of content that I wanted to make initially. So I'd be happy if you gave it a chance. And if you do like it, let me know, either in the next stream, or in a comment, or the Discord, which is vaguely inactive. But it exists. The Discord is there, and sometimes I post things there. Check the community tab if you don't know about the Discord, and maybe I'll get around to looking at it again today. We'll see. But that's where we're gonna end it for today. Yeah, I had a lot of fun talking about fishing and other things, like coffee wine, benzaldehyde, great word, but we're gonna end it here. Yeah, so I will see you all again next time, but for now, Hyde out. I love you all. Good night.